The Democrat Party is a house of cards on the verge of collapse. Just take a look at this headline from the New York Times. Inside the phone-throwing drama in the troubled, broke Democratic Party, the Democrats should be well-positioned to make gains in this year's midterms, but inside party headquarters, every week brings paranoia, worries about money, and, on occasion, emotional eruptions. Now, keep in mind this is the New York Times, right? When Graham Plattner had his troubles, they really watered down those accusations. They really tried to cover up for his campaign because they knew the dirt they had on him would really derail him, and, well, we all know how that turned out. Clearly, the New York Times is doing the same thing for the Democrat Party as a whole. So whatever they're reporting, you can guarantee that the reality is a lot worse. And one of the things they're reporting is that the DNC is millions of dollars in debt. And of course, that's really ironic because Ken Martin, the chair of the DNC, said this late last year.
There are a lot of good billionaires out there that have been with Democrats who share our values, and we will take their money, but we're not taking money from those bad billionaires.
Here, thank you, Joe Martin.
Well, I think he regrets saying that because right now the Democrat Party is having a hard time getting money from anyone. They are $2 million in debt, according to Mediaite. The Times reports that the DNC is $2 million in debt, while the Republican National Committee has $128.5 million on hand. So just a completely different picture. And the reason this matters is because usually midterm years favor the party out of power. This should be a home run, a runaway race for the Democrats, but right now, they're still struggling in the polls. Their unfavorability ratings are higher than President Trump's. And then financially, right? This money isn't just for 2026. It's not just for the midterms. This really sets the stage for 2028 and beyond. So the fact that the Democrats are this far behind, it shows you just how much in shambles they are, and it really, I think, reminds voters why we can't trust Democrats in the first place. If you can't handle your own house, if you can't handle your own party, how are you going to manage the finances of the entire country? Seriously, the DNC is so much smaller. Both political parties are so much smaller than the entire government, the country as a whole. The GDP every year is trillions of dollars. Our national budget is in the hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. And the DNC can't even manage their own budget. They can't even manage their fundraisers. They're still in debt, by the way, from the $1 billion that they spent on Kamala Harris in 2024. In fact, things are so bad that part of the Democrat Party's strategy is requesting people to not bill them until after the election. The Democrat Party is so short on hand, this is according to the New York Times, so short on cash, that leaders at its headquarters have undertaken a new gambit to mask the severity of the problems, asking vendors not to send bills until after the midterm elections. Yeah, that really instills confidence in your ability to lead the country. Again, very simple question. If you can't even run your own house, how can we trust you to run the country? And in regards to the midterms, it's not just about the DNC versus the RNC, because there are all these different PACs and super PACs out there. And according to the Times, the Democrat Party and its allies are far behind Republicans when it comes to money because President Trump controls a $400 million super PAC. And this is on top of the $130 million by the RNC, and then the DNC, of course, being $2 million in debt. And the Times here really outlines how this is really meant to help propel both parties into the 2028 election cycle. And if you think about all the insurgent candidates that the Democrat Party is facing right now, all these DSA candidates, the communist candidates, it really is going to be a hard time for the Democrats to try to run any sort of establishment candidate because the party as a whole doesn't have the infrastructure. They don't have the finances to tamp down those insurgent candidates. And I believe that's part of the reason, whether it's in Maine or in Michigan, we see all of these insurgencies and these extreme candidates popping up. Again, it's because the Democrats can't run their own house financially, and therefore they're not able to control what kinds of candidates that end up getting elected in these primaries. Now, one of the bombshells coming from this New York Times piece are these allegations of physical violence from Ken Martin. So Ken has this reputation of being mild-mannered, mild-tempered. A lot of people think he's, more moderate compared to the rest of the party, but I've always thought that he's, had a few anger issues. When Doge was making cuts to the government, just listen to this clip. I think it's really indicative of what an angry person this guy is.
What would be your message to Elon Musk and his teenage Doge dudes who are currently firing career civil servants?
Well, go to hell. I mean, the reality is what you're doing is destroying our country right now, all to make more money for yourself, all to steal data so you can help build your companies. What you're doing is wrong, and at the end of the day, we're watching. The American people are fed up, and it's not working.
Seriously, go to hell. That's his response to people who are trying to root out and cut out fraud, waste, and abuse. You might not have agreed with Doge or how Elon Musk and his team went about it, but to say go to hell, that seems like an overreactive response when you take a look at the core mission and what they were trying to accomplish. Well, it turns out that his angry outburst there wasn't just on camera. This apparently happens behind the scenes. He apparently once threw a phone, and the incident was so bad that it got reported to HR at the DNC. Now, again, I want to emphasize this is coming from the New York Times, and we all know what the New York Times did with the Graham Plattner story. They got these accusations, they got all of these corroborating stories, and what did the Times do? They watered it down because they were trying to protect Graham Plattner. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Times is running this story and there's actually even more allegations, even more accusations, and they're actually watering this down. So take all of this with a grain of salt. Mr. Martin's fraying nerves are showing. In a peak of frustration in early July, he threw his phone at the desk of a junior aide while upbraiding the person. The phone tossing incident resulted in a formal complaint to the DNC's Human Resources Department. And it goes on. You can pause this if you want to read more of it. And apparently, there weren't outside witnesses, anything like that. Again, my question is does the New York Times have any more corroborating information on this? Is the New York Times hiding anything from the public in order to protect not just Ken Martin himself, but the Democrat Party brand as a whole? I think it's a fair question to ask after we saw what they did to the accusers of Graham Plattner. And as if all of that wasn't bad enough, Ken Martin appears to be on the verge of quitting. Now, he doesn't say this, and the Times doesn't say this, but come on, read in between the lines here. Around the office and beyond, Mr. Martin has taken to making macabre jokes to colleagues about how long he will remain in his post, even though his term does not end until 2029. He is frustrated with the tarnished public image of the party that he plainly loves and has devoted his life to, and that remains bullish about November given President Trump's low approval ratings. Why would you be making dark jokes about how long you're going to last, how long your term is going to actually be, unless it's already percolating in the back of your mind? Am I right, or am I just trying to read something, that isn't there? I really think that he must be considering, or at least is so fed up that he's on the verge of quitting. Otherwise, you wouldn't make those jokes. If you are at a job that you love, just think about it in your own life. If you are happy, whether it's a job, a relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship or a friendship, or it's involvement in your community, your school, whatever you're involved with, whatever relationship that is, are you going to joke about that ending? Are you going to joke about how long it's going to be if you're actually happy? Most of the time, we only make those jokes when we're deeply unhappy with where we are. So the fact that he's even joking about that, I think, tells us that his term could be over sooner than we expect. And if that happens before 2028, the Democrat Party is truly going to be in turmoil. So they're in debt, millions of dollars in debt, no signs of recovery yet. So much so, they're asking vendors to prolong this till after the midterms. I mean, if they're $2 million of debt right now in the summer, is that going to be in the tens of millions by the time the midterms come around? I don't know. So you see all of this happening. You have allegations of potential physical violence behind the scenes. Oh, it was at a desk. We'll see if more corroborating evidence, if more allegations start coming out, and whether or not they actually escalate the story, similar to the Graham Plattner situation here. But then on top of all of this, you have the radicalization of the Democrat Party in real time. And a lot of people think that this is because of just the insurgents choosing to run. But a lot of this can actually be traced back to the leadership of Ken Martin himself. He's been pushing those DSA candidates to enter and be part of the Democrat Party instead of branching off and doing their own thing.
Here, that you win through addition. not through subtraction.
That's true.
You win by bringing people into the conversation. You win by growing your coalition. You win by being a big tent, not a small tent, right? And sometimes that means things are messy in our party. That means we have different ideas and different ways of doing things. We have different opinions on a whole host of issues. But that's the beauty of the Democratic Party. That's what separates us from the Republicans. We're not homogenous in our thinking. We're not homogenous in who belongs to the party. We're a very diverse party with lots of different ideas and thoughts on how to get to the same goal.
There's a bit of irony here because he keeps talking about a big tent party, and the Democrats say that when they're defending these insurgent candidates. A tent, by definition, has borders. It's funny, right? Because they don't want the country to have borders, yet they say their party has borders. By definition, if you are inside a tent, there are people inside of it and people outside of it. And what really boggles my mind here is they're acting as if, oh, we can't say no to those crazy people. We can't turn them away. But every party does this. Do you want your party to have Nazis? Should the Republican Party, should President Trump's party have Nazis? Should they have white supremacists? No, he's disavowed Nazis. He's disavowed white supremacists. He said, you have nothing to do with our movement. You are so crazy. You are so extreme. You are outside of the borders of the tent. Yet the Democrats can't do this. They have literal communists, DSA members, who say they want to destroy the country from the inside out. Yes, I actually have a tape from one of the internal meetings of the DSA, and they are on video admitting this, that their goal is to destroy the United States of America from the inside out. But before we get to that, I would like to go to Fox News because the DSA co-chair actually appeared on there this morning with Shannon Bream, and she didn't even hide what their goals were. Shannon Bream ran this true or false segment. Are you for this? Are you against this? True or false? And wow, I mean, they are just not even hiding. Once upon a time, they used to hide how radical they are. Now they're just showing it because they are accepted by the Democrat Party. And again, this is only because of the leadership, or lack thereof, of Ken Martin.
So we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're proud of this. Once upon a time, they would have hidden from Fox News, right? They would have avoided Fox News at all costs. They would have been afraid of tough questions. They would have been afraid of getting embarrassed. But now they're on there, proudly stating what they are for. They really believe that they have the momentum in all of this. And quite frankly, I can't blame them. When you have one of the two major parties really, giving oxygen to this fire here, it's no wonder that they are so bullish. But of course, when you play with fire, you get burnt. So it's very dangerous for the rest of us. Now, like I said earlier, I do have a tape from inside one of the DSA meetings where they're talking about their grand plan to destroy the country. But before we get to that, I would like to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club. They are RL 1401, Shannon Miller, Moonfairy 11, Peach Street Scriffett, Dennis Nevin, Mick Trim, and Don Frank. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you enjoy. Well, you can only execute a plan if you have a plan. And what's scary is we're seeing them execute this plan in real time. And so I think we need to take them at their word, understand what their goal is, and that gives us the opportunity, the understanding to be able to stop them.
And, we have a unique responsibility to act from the heart of empire, the belly of the beast. The most important thing that we can do is take that empire down from within.
Our role ultimately is to facilitate our own empire's failure in ways that we can, ultimately to overthrow our own empire.
U.S. imperialism is not a thing that can be reformed away. It has to be overthrown through revolutionary struggle.
And to build a mass movement that can use the leverage of workers to hit the kill switch on American imperialism here within the American empire.
I don't know about you, but to me, the big irony in all of this is that all of the people leading this movement seem, on video at least, to be the beneficiaries of America's greatness. All of them look like upper middle class kids. They all look like they're living at home, maybe in their parents' basement. Some of them look like they were maybe in their parents' living rooms. They all looked privileged. You could tell they went to an expensive private education somewhere, and yet they're talking about destroying the country. You'll notice none of those people are the oppressed minorities that the Democrats always like to talk about. No black people, no Hispanics there, no Asians or Indians or Native Americans. These all appear to be privileged children talking about the destruction of the very country that gave them the privilege they so richly enjoy. Talk about irony, talk about hypocrisy, and just, a complete lack of the bigger picture here. If we're to take hope, if we're to take solace in anything, it's that the DNC, the Democratic Party as a whole, they are in shambles, they are in debt, and they may soon be rudderless and leaderless yet again. As always, though, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So we have all these insurgent candidates coming from the Democrat Party. How concerned are you about this? Are you concerned about the direction of the country, or do you think that these are just, blips on the radar, these are just road bumps, and, it's a fad. It's a hot flash in the pan, but it's not going to go anywhere. Let me know what you think. Is this a dangerous turn for the country, or is this just a fad that isn't going to last for much longer? Let me know your thoughts, your predictions down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.